Man, welcome to MAddOG'S After Show. You're up and running with the MAddOG and Cole, the Exterminator, Daryl.
The other day I was thinking, so I stopped.
We got Cowboy Kenny coming up on episode 96 right after we take care of a little business.
I decided to fly through the air and live in the sunlight and enjoy life as much as I could, and that's just what I'm doing.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm. Everybody stay calm. What's the procedure? Stay calm. Wait.
Man, what a way to get things started with Cowboy Kenny coming on in just a minute with those inspiring words of the original FMX master, Mr. Evil Knievel. Flying through the air, living in the sunlight, and enjoying life. And we don't all have to fly through the air, but we all need to take time to enjoy life.
Yeah, and if you are flying through the air like Cowboy Kenny Bartram, you need to really thank our first responders for being there. Not only them, but obviously all the brave men and women of our military, all of our armed forces, all the families around them that support them and let us do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And a very special shout out to all the families that gave all, the families of our service people that are currently MIA or have been KIA. Our thoughts and prayers and much appreciation are with you. While we're on a serious note, because we're not going to be serious for long, ladies, get over to nationalbreastcancer.org. Get your mammogram scheduled. It is October. We are recording in October. It is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I want to give special thoughts and prayers to all my friends and family that are going through it, that have fought the battle, that are fighting the battle, that have won the battle, and a special prayer for all those who have lost the battle. That's nationalbreastcancer.org. And now, before Cowboy Kenny gets here, we got to take care of a little business. And it's so funny because Kenny, the Cowboy Bartram, is from Stillwater, Oklahoma, which also happens to be the birthplace and current residence of our great partner, Kicker Performance Audio. All your 12-volt audio needs, all your personal audio needs, anything you need, man. Premium audio, Real Marine trademark, Kicker Performance Audio, Kicker Marine Audio, Kicker Power Sports Audio. Find them online, kicker.com, on Instagram at Kicker Audio, on Facebook, Kicker, and every other Tuesday night live on their TV show, Kicker Unmasked Live. Tune in to J-Dub, Ern, and the crew on YouTube or Facebook, or I believe X now too. So check them out, kicker.com. Of course, Bomber Eyewear, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear, Bomber Badass Eyewear. If you want to be a badass, wear Bombers. You heard the story in our last episode where they came from. It's the American dream. It's true story of hard work and creating something that didn't exist because you needed it in your blue collar construction job and found a way to become a multi-time jet ski world champion, as well as owning your own eyewear company. Check them out, Bomber Eyewear, with 42 frame styles, and I can't even tell you how many lens styles available in prescription, safety, floating, mirrored, non-mirrored, smoked, clear, yellow, whatever you need. Find them online, bombereyewear.com, or Instagram at Bomber Eyewear. Of course, the Premix podcast and our man Cole sharing all of his passion for desert racing, most of his passion for desert racing, anyways, through the lens of a camera. If you're at a desert race, hit him up, slide into his DMs on Instagram at the Premix Podcast. If he's going to be there, I guarantee he'd love to get some great shots of you and pass them on. Also booking for the 2025 MC and announcer season now. You can slide into his DMs over at Instagram, the at symbol ThePremixPodcast.
Wow.
Do it. Of course, Kelsey Morrell Film, getting all of our film carnage into a creative atmosphere, getting us up there on social media and YouTube, and handling our audio, which sometimes can be quite a challenge. Man, for all your commercial or still photo production needs, from pre-production planning all the way through the process into post-production, find her on Instagram at Kelsey Morrell Film. Of course, Hey Geeks Marketing, handling all our social media templates and logos and stuff like that. Everything you need, from a website to social media accounts to full-blown social media influencer campaigns, yell Hey Geeks, or find her online at heygeeks.com or on Instagram, Hey Geeks Marketing. Man, as promised, Kenny the Cowboy Bartram. Buddy, what's up?
How's it going, guys?
It's going great, dude. Hey, for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm going to throw some quick stats out there, and then we're going to get some great stories. But let me see. You still hold the record, I think, for most wins, pro wins in the Oklahoma motocross series or something like that. That's an obscure one, but
Yeah. I don't know if I have I don't know if I have the most wins in Oklahoma. I kind of doubt that. There's some absolute legends in the racing world in Oklahoma, so
that's true.
I think I have the most wins in freestyle motocross.
Okay.
The most event wins. So
Yeah. Well, and Supercross, and then 10-time Gravity and X Games medalist.
Yep.
I had to write this down because there was no way I was going to remember all this. You won a gold medal in '99 at the Gravity Games, partnering with Pastrana.
Yeah, that was a good time for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. 01 X Game, the X Games first Moto X Big Air Gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
First
then,
best trick gold. Yeah.
yeah. So 7-time world freestyle motocross champion, rally wins, rookie of the year in rally, been on video games, like Krusty's, and a whole bunch of video games, right?
I honestly have no idea. I'm sorry. I've never been a big gamer, so I know I'm in a couple. I think they're the older, like ATV versus MX Unleashed or whatever.
Right.
I think Travis may have had a game that I was in. There is a couple, but I honestly couldn't tell you the names of them.
Right. Nitro Circus veteran also. And
Yep.
and now you're still Cowboy Kenny's Steel Rodeo, still going. So you're still flying through the air, but now you've picked up stuntman onto your
Right.
resume.
Yep.
And well, I had to search this. I'm not gonna lie. I knew you did stunt work, but I counted no less than 34 movies and TV series that you've done stunt work in.
Yeah.
And and folks like Jack Reacher, Logan, Baby Driver, Geostorm, Jumanji, Into the Jungle, right?
Yep. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Yep.
Welcome to the Jungle. That's it. I didn't write that part. I was trying to remember. See, that's what happens when
Right.
I try and remember. Capone, LBJ, NCIS Hawaii. Dude, like, and you're still going.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, just living the dream, man. I get to ride a dirt bike for a living, and like you said, the stunt work. A lot of people don't know that I'm doing stuff off the bike in stunts as well. There's a lot of car stuff. I'm not a martial artist, but I can bar brawl with the next guy. So I do some small fight scenes and weapons, just shooting a pistol or whatever. Like, it's pretty crazy some of the stuff that they need to have a stunt person for. I feel like some of it's really mundane type stuff, but it's also something, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get hurt, and so they can't use a background or an extra for that.
Right.
So, but then other days there's big stuff. They're like, "Oh my God, you want me to do what?" And I'm gonna, no, okay, action, here we go. you know, Logan, I had to ride up next to a limousine. It was doing about 30 miles an hour out in the desert, like bouncing through the sand.
Yeah.
And I punched through the window, and I'm like reaching for the girl that's inside. And then the limousine hits me, and I squirrel off and crash in the sand. And that was the first time I've ever crashed on purpose, knowing I was getting hit by a car. So I'm at my start mark, and the limousine's next to me, and I'm like, oh my God, that car is going to run over me in like 100 feet. Like, this is not supposed to happen. That was probably one of the most scared times I've ever been, but it actually wasn't that bad once it happened.
That's that's crazy though, because you're like intentionally letting a car crash you.
Right, exactly. A lot of times in stunts, you don't really know what you're doing until you get there. Some of the bigger stuff like this, they tell you. And
Right.
so I had an old farm truck out in Oklahoma. I was driving through a pasture, and I had somebody drive it super slow, and I got to where I could bang into it was an F-350. I got pretty good at banging into the car and then going off to the side or into the truck.
Right.
So getting hit by it wasn't as big of a shock as, at least I had done it a little bit, got some rehearsal in. So
what a heck of a thing to have to practice. So that's like,
right.
Dude, that's just not normal.
The guy driving was my stepson. I think he was like 16 at the time, and it's a standard pickup. He was just barely able to let the clutch out. And he's like, "You want me to do what? You want me to run over you with the truck?" That was pretty funny.
That's amazing. And, the listeners are probably going, oh yeah, watch Logan. I remember that. Holy cow, so that's pretty crazy. But I want to, like, you have literally spent most of your life. Well, we got to give a huge shout out to the city of Stillwater, because that's where the Cowboy came from, Stillwater, Oklahoma, which also, as we mentioned in the intro, conveniently happens to be the birthplace and home of Kicker Performance Audio also. So
absolutely.
Go Cowboys.
Kicker's been my longest running sponsor. I've been a part of the family, I think, since 1996. I got my driver's license in 95, and I got my first stereo from Kicker in 96. So long time.
That's incredible. And actually, that's where I got to meet you. Was they kind of brought back a mini Big Air Bash in 2018 and did it right on Husband Street, right out in front of the world headquarters there, between world headquarters and Boomer Lake. And you were riding, Cody Elkins was riding.
Yep.
And I don't remember, there's somebody else.
I think Anthony Murray was our third guy for that.
Was he? That's funny.
Yeah, Anthony,
because
he lived in Stillwater for a while, and he's a big Kicker guy as well. So
yeah, I know Anthony now, but I didn't know him then. So that's funny.
Yeah,
I've gotten to know a bunch of you guys, and we had Haslam, Robert Haslam, on the show not too long ago, and You know, he's another. It's funny because he was talking about becoming like the elder of freestyle, you know, and he's talking about guys like you and Cody that he looked up to his whole life, and he's gotten to ride with you guys, and now he's like considered to a lot of these guys one of the elders of freestyle, if you will, and he's still a kid. So
Sport. It's kind of weird. A lot of it is most of the work now is just exhibition stuff instead of contests. Where the contest stuff, man, guys are really pushing the limits, and that's kind of your younger kids that don't really care if they get hurt.
right.
A little younger and dumber. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I would say probably 80% of the guys riding freestyle professionally are either in their 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
Where when it first started, everybody was like 17. Like if you were
Right.
25, you were already old for the sport of freestyle.
Well, and you were really in ground zero, like you, Pastrana, a bunch of those guys, Metzger, even like way back when freestyle was being born. I mean, other than like Evil Knievel, you know, nobody.
Right.
There was a big gap during that time frame, right?
Right. Yeah, I got really fortunate that I got invited to some of the first contests, and got into freestyle, like you said, at ground zero. I feel bad for all the new kids trying to get into it now. There's 15 or 20 upright tricks. Well, now you got to learn all of those upside down.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a long learning curve for them. Where I was able to take 10 or 15 years to learn all those tricks and the backflip and then do some of them upside down. I don't do a lot of backflip tricks now, but the younger kids coming in to try to make a name for yourself, though, you got to be doing some flip tricks.
Yeah, and it seems to be, like any events that I go to where there's, whether it's kicker monster trucks or, any of those events where they have freestyle, the kicker arena cross summer series, all those kids are like working either just learn the backflip, they've been in freestyle 2 or 3 years and they're just getting the backflip down, but everybody, and truth of the matter is, I mean, there's flip pay, right? So
Right.
if you can do flips, you can make more money. So
Right. Yep. Exactly.
it's incentive, but you guys don't get to where you're at. You don't get to where you're at and your age and still doing the tricks um by being reckless like some of these early kids I've seen.
Right. Yeah, that's something I feel like I've always. A lot of people have called me calculated. I did do some dumb stuff, and looking back on it, man, I can't believe I did that trick. Um, but I felt like I was pretty calculated with stuff, so I was very fortunate. I had my injuries, but nothing. A lot of the guys were way off, or way worse off than what I was, and so I'm very blessed to be. I'm 46 years old and still able to ride, and I'm not competitive. I wouldn't make top 10 at a contest, but I'm still able to put on a decent show for the crowd.
Well, I've seen you what 2 years or 3 years ago you rode the Guthrie Arena Cross. You and
Yep.
Cody rode and
Yeah.
still put on a great show. I mean, there are 5,000 people on their feet, so uh,
Right.
and it helps you guys were hometown boys, right? So
Yeah.
um
It's always fun to ride in Oklahoma, man.
yeah.
Guthrie's great. 20 minutes from my house, and I don't know, probably 30 or 45 from Cody's. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's nice to sleep in your own bed at night.
It speaking of the home field, there's something that might be
There
familiar.
you go.
I've got a whole
Eskimo
stack of
Joe's.
those Eskimo Joes.
Yeah.
Being from Stillwater, though, and Oklahoma has huge, huge, huge motocross, arena cross history, motorcycling history. Where did it start for you? Like, what pulled the pin right from the get go? Like 2 years old, 3 years old, 10 years old. When, and what?
So Actually, I'll get to my family here in a second. You said Oklahoma, is a huge hotbed. There is now an Oklahoma Motocross Hall of Fame. Ronald Ainsworth, who passed away recently this year, his daughter Jennifer is running the Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of guys in there that have gone on to win Supercross championships, outdoor championships, arena cross championships. Obviously Oklahoma State championships, stuff like that. There's a lot of champions that came from Oklahoma. It's a pretty amazing feat when you look at how many guys raced professionally and made big marks in the sport. So it's kind of cool to be able to come from Oklahoma and whatnot.
Yeah, and
But for me
there's
personally, oh yeah, go ahead.
there's a lot of flat track guys too.
Yeah,
that
there's some big flat
came
track
out
because
of
the Oklahoma
Oklahoma.
City Mile or whatever, that's a big race. Yep.
Just as a sidebar, now let's get back to what you're saying. I'm sorry.
That's all good. So for me personally, actually, it's kind of funny. My parents tried to get me on a bike when I was 4, and they said I was scared of the noise, and so they got rid of it. My grandparents owned a motorcycle shop at the time, so it was pretty easy to like, hey, let him try a bike out, But then about age 7, I watched a video of my uncle Guy Cooper just out practicing. My uncle Guy's 1990 125 champion and 93 world 250 world Supercross champion. He raced obviously professionally.
Yeah.
So I watched the video of him, and from that moment on, everything was about dirt bikes. I was up front in the motorcycle shop watching the video. How they have them playing in the showroom and whatnot. And, apparently, I watched that video and I went to the back and started talking to the mechanics, and they told my parents like, "Hey, by the questions he's asking, he's ready for a bike." And so my dad and my sister showed horses at the time, so we just take my bike out. I had a little Honda MR50, and I'd ride around the horse arena, and that's where I got my start. It was literally just riding in a flat horse arena for a lot of years. But it even goes back beyond Guy. Guy is one of 8, and all 8 kids rode and raced. All 4 boys raced in the pro class.
Wow.
And my uncle Chuck actually had a 2-digit national number. He was ranked 44th, I think, in 1977.
Wow.
And then my grandparents, they met at a field meet. They opened a motorcycle shop and were obviously involved in motorcycles and bicycles forever. And my great grandmother was a Motor Maid of America. I think it was in the 30s. She was one of the founding members. A woman had to own her own bike and be able to ride it by herself to be one of the members of the Motor Maids of America. It's pretty cool to say I'm a 4th generation rider. It's been in our family forever.
Yeah, I did not know that. What amazing history. I knew about Guy. I didn't know about the rest of the family history. And, of course, being there in Oklahoma as many times as I have been and being around a lot of the racing, like the arena cross stuff mostly, Guy Cooper is like, everybody knows who Guy Cooper is in Oklahoma for sure. So,
Really?
and I knew he was related to you. I couldn't remember if he was your uncle or what, but
Yeah. Guy's my uncle, and then actually my cousin Dennis actually works at Kicker in the R&D department. He, I think, unofficially holds the Guinness World Record for the longest jump on a pit bike. He has a 10-inch rear wheel, 88cc pit bike. I think he went 139 feet, 131, something like that. Just ridiculously big jump for a pit bike.
Holy smokes.
So, he raced for Factory Thump Star as well and still rides to this day. It's pretty cool, man. Our whole family's on wheels.
Yeah, I've got
My
to
mom's
hang
in her
out.
70s and she still rides.
That's awesome. I got to hang out with Dennis a few times. Oh yeah, don't say she's older than she is, man.
Sorry, Mom.
Because moms listen to this stuff. Sometimes I got to watch my language because I think my mom listens once in a while. So it's like,
actually, it's kind of funny. My mom actually jumped in my foam pit.
Really?
On Mother's Day, she was 50 years old, and that was her birthday. She wanted to come out and it was Mother's Day, but that was her Mother's Day present. She's like, I've always wanted to jump a dirt bike, and I want to jump it into your foam pit. And so we had the ramp all the way up at the front. She's on like a 1982 XR200. blue jeans, t-shirt, open face helmet, and the biggest smile you've ever seen in your life. It was like, that's amazing.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah,
And what a heritage.
she has a picture of it. Next time you're in the lock shop, ask her about it.
I will for sure. That is incredible, man. And so, did you start then? Obviously, you started racing local races, um, and moved into Supercross. You raced what, the 125 class in Supercross, right?
Yeah. So I've raced just about everything. I've never done any road racing, but I started off in cross countries and enduros, racing the Okra Series in Oklahoma and riding out at the 500. And then I did one motocross race on a 60. I went down to Oklahoma City and I was like, man, I'm gonna smoke that Robbie Rayner guy. I'm gonna lap him and whatever. I think I got lapped 4 times in a 5-lap race. I was absolutely dead last. I was devastated. I cried the whole way home. I didn't race again for like probably 5 or 6 years after that.
Wow.
I just practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And then I did all right, in the 80 class. I was never a superstar or anything, but did all right in 80 beginner. But anyway, I raced local motocross in Oklahoma and then did arena cross and supercross. And then freestyle, I was doing some halftime jump contests at arena cross for a while. And then freestyle became a sport in 1998. It was the first standalone contest. And luckily I got invited to that one. And about 2000 was really my transition year. When I did about half freestyle and half racing. But yeah, I've raced hill climbs. I've done supermoto, motocross, arena cross, supercross, all that.
Wow.
My best finish in a supercross was 10th in a 125 main. I never made a 250 main. That was a goal. I wanted to make at least one national point towards getting a 2-digit number, and I never made it. But
that's tough though, because back in, I mean, there was a lot of tough guys in the 250 class back then too.
Yeah, my first pro race was Atlanta in '96. There was 127 125 riders and 123 250 riders.
Wow.
And it was like they take top 40 to the night program.
Right.
It was amazing, A full pit.
Holy smokes. That's crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of qualifiers.
Man, that's so what all of a sudden, like why all of a sudden did you go, well, I want to, instead of jumping the bike over doubles, I want to jump it over a double jump and just like let go of the handlebars, or where, because
I think
that's
it's
not
kind
a
of
normal transition, bud.
right. Well, it's not really a normal transition, but it's also pretty common for people. Once you get fairly comfortable jumping,
Right.
Everybody wants to whip. You want to do a whip, and then you're going to do a no footer, and then a one hander and a no hander. Actually, it's kind of funny. I got grounded when I was riding an 80 for doing a one hander. My parents are like, "You need to learn how to go fast first, and then style will come later." And now here I am, a freestyle rider.
Right.
But yeah, just pounding out lap after lap after lap. A lot of people see the 20-lap main event of the Supercross Stars, and they think that's it. Man, I've been riding 39 years now, and I was lucky to ride 80s and 125 amateur while Guy was still racing professionally. So I got to ride with him. You're doing 2 or 3 30-minute motos a day, 20-lap Supercross mains. I mean, it's 4, 5, 6 days a week riding that many laps. I get bored. Once you do all the jumps on a track, it's kind of, to me, it just gets kind of boring. So you just take one hand off and you take the other hand. And then money comes into play, obviously. I was doing halftime contests at arena crosses, which honestly, those, if you just crash, you're pretty much guaranteed to win because the crowd cheers for a crash.
Right.
But then when freestyle became a standalone sport, you couldn't crash because it didn't disqualify you, but the runs were based off of an overall impression.
Right.
Obviously, if you crashed, it wasn't a great impression. So so then it forced you to learn some new tricks, but actually land it right away from it. And, but it kind of opened up the idea of, hey, we can get paid for doing this. And there's a reason now to do tricks rather than just going out having fun with your buddies.
Right. And does it ever like has it ever stopped being fun?
When you're hurt, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No, it's it's kind of funny. I want to say no. I mean, I get to ride a dirt bike, and every now and then I have to pinch myself. As a, it does become a job, unfortunately. And some days you show up, it's windy, it's muddy, it's rainy, there's a low roof, there's a short whatever. There's something going on that makes it just not really that much fun. You kind of have to deal with it. But then there's other days when everything is just clicking, and you're like, my God, I could ride for hours like this. Like
Right.
I want to do this till I'm 70. Like I feel so good. And there's so much energy and it's so fun. And you're like, those are the good days. It's just like anything. You have good days and bad days. So
Yeah, for sure. And I know now I'm blessed enough to know of a lot of freestyle athletes, and for a lot of you guys, the airbag has really been a big game changer over the old metal and wood or dirt landings.
right. The airbags have kind of, I'm going to say they've resurrected some careers and I think they've ended some careers. There's pros and cons to them. Um, if they're not inflated properly, they're either like a pogo stick, or
Yeah.
you can land and go all the way through them, or like the sides wrap up and they'll catch a brake lever or something and spit you out onto the concrete after it. And so if they're inflated perfectly, they're awesome. But if it's not just right, man, they're bad. Uh,
Yeah. What do you prefer? Would you rather do you like the airbags? Do you like the old plywood and metal?
um, I think I still like the airbags. It takes a little bit of the mental pressure off of you. I've gone into the front of my metal landing twice now, and both
Ooh,
times were a trip to the hospital. You know, it
yeah.
wasn't a fun day. But I've only seen one guy go into the front of an airbag, and he ended up breaking his back. It was Scott Miller. Ended up, I think, had 4 or 5 vertebrae fused. Um, so he compressed into the front of it, and it had so much air pressure it shot him backwards. Well, the bag's 14 feet tall. He was like
Yeah.
20, 25 feet in the air, just landed on his feet, and like just broke his back. So um, I want to say it takes that pressure off, but at the same time, man, it's still motorsports. You still got to focus. And hey, there's a downside on this airbag. I got to hit it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For sure. Well, when um used to do an event called Doomfest with Haslam, and Billy Wilson, when he rode out there, they called him what was it, Backside Billy, because he had hit the basically the front of the airbag, the backside of the airbag enough
right.
times that it would make people
Oh,
nervous.
wow,
And he's
that's
he's
funny.
young, but he's still riding. So, but I have
Yeah,
seen
I've,
what you're
I've
talking
actually got to
about.
do a couple shows with Billy, so that's good.
Yeah, he's a wild man. He's a nice kid.
Yeah.
Um, he rode. I got to see him back in July, and first thing he did, a lot of these young guys I've had the opportunity to work with, and so I feel vested. Like you guys, you Cody, you veterans, when you jump, I don't get nervous, right? I'm like,
Well, that makes one of us.
I mean, you guys are my friends, but it's like these guys got this. They probably do it with their eyes closed.
Right.
Um, but some of these young kids, I get nervous when they jump, and you were talking about not getting the airbag just right, and it's funny because that happened to Billy in practice for the Gallup Arena Cross Summer Series, where the bag was just a little bit too hard, and he landed a little bit, had a little tire slip up the ramp, and landed a little bit short, and it was the first hit too, and it's just like doing bounce, bounce, bounce out onto the ground and across the ground, and I'm like, what the hell? What like that's not how you start your day. But yeah, the airbags, I've seen them spring people off, and it's weird how they can suck somebody in, especially if you go a little bit deep on them. It seems like that lower section really wants to blow out and kind of encase you.
It is weird for sure. I mean, the physics of an airbag, you got to have air under you to catch you. Well, at the top of it, it's 14 feet. So there's 14 feet of air, and there's baffles and chambers and all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
in there. But as you taper down, those tails go down to where they're only about 6 inches tall. But even where it transitions from the downside to the tail is about a foot, foot and a half. Well, a foot and a half of an airbag is not enough to catch you coming from 40 feet up. So if you
Right.
land there, you're going all the way through it and hitting the ground underneath. And so yeah, it'll kind of it's a rough ride.
Yeah.
But you also have to think on a metal landing, they're still tapered and it doesn't suck you in. But at that point, you would be on the flatter part of the metal landing. Normally, they have a downside and a tail.
Right.
That tail's never very fun to land on. It's a pretty hard landing there. And the same thing, like you were talking about, Billy coming up short and bouncing. Well, if you don't know exactly how to like pitch the bike just right, and I mean, kind of ride the bounce. I've seen a lot of guys get bounced over the handlebars and come up short on the metal landings. Not short on the front, but just on the safety deck. I've seen a lot of guys crash from that.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's pros and cons to both of them. They're good and bad. I've also seen guys come off the bike straight upside down on the airbags, land to get up, kick their bars straight, and go again.
Yeah.
You're like, man, had that been a metal landing, we'd be calling an ambulance for you right now.
For
so there's,
sure.
like I said, there's goods and pros and cons.
Yeah.
They've changed the road game a lot. My metal landing used to be about 16,000 pounds going down the road. Now I'm about
Right.
8,000, and I have an enclosed trailer where everything stays halfway clean and whatnot. Where the old hydraulic one and all of the landings were all transformer looking things that rain got in and road grime, and you couldn't keep anything clean in those landing ramps. So
You've been literally jumping and like freestyle all over the world. I
yeah.
mean, and is there any place like early on? Let's go back to I'm really I'm not really familiar with the history side of freestyle. I watched a lot of it, as it got more and more mainstream. But back in the early
Yeah.
days of freestyle, man, what that had to be brutal. Like, because there wasn't a lot of people doing it.
No, I mean with arena crosses, you'd usually get 2 or 3 guys that were racing, and they would do the halftime show. And, crowd applause won, and it was usually like $100 or $200. And as a racer that wasn't always winning the race, I'm like, heck yeah, man, that was $200 for the gas money. I
Right.
just paid my entry fees. But once freestyle became a standalone sport, I think there was like 35, 33, 38, somewhere in there at the first contest. So there was, almost 40 guys at those first couple of contests in 1998. And then that kind of opened it up, like I said, to show guys, hey, this can be a real sport. Like, not that you could really make a living off of it. In 98, there was only 3 events. And then I think 99, there was only like 5.
Wow.
2000 was really, like I said, the transition year where you could find an event almost every weekend in 2000. And it was like, okay, we need to start doing more of this. But yeah, I mean, it was, I don't want to say it was rough. It was just fun back then. There
Right.
wasn't, I don't want to say nobody was serious about it, but it was more of your racers who got tired of the factories. Like, you need to test, pound out laps and do your physical work and, your cross training and all this. And they're like, man, I can go out here and play ride for 2 or 3 minutes on a freestyle course. And I'll jump this jump and do a whip, and I'll go over here and I'll do a heel clicker. Like it was a lot more fun, like play riding. It wasn't so serious. And over the years, obviously corporate sponsors got involved, and the competitive nature of people riding freestyle, like, you wanted to do better, you wanted to learn more tricks, and so it became a lot more serious. The guys that are out doing contests now, I would say that they're maybe not quite as good a shape as your supercross guys, but pretty darn close. They're at the gym every day, lifting weights, flexibility, yoga, cardio, whatever. Like they're in pretty darn good shape. The new young kids that are pushing the limits.
Yeah, and there's it's still going, and thankfully a lot of you guys have stayed the course um to keep it alive, because freestyle kind of took, I feel like, kind of took a little dip at one point, um but now, like you said, it's back to freestyle every weekend in
Yeah,
10 different
there's
towns across the
it is
country.
for sure. It's tough. Freestyle is in a weird spot right now. There's not a lot of contests. Like I know I keep referring to the young kids and the contests. There's one or two each year, and it's a lot of like social media stuff, pushing the limits,
Yeah.
doing. I guess it'd be more video stuff rather than truly contests, bigger, gnarlier tricks. But it's really tough for the new kids coming in to make a name for themselves. So everybody, the pay is kind of flattened out. You have your non-flip pay and flip pay. It doesn't really matter. I know, like my shows, I used to use Matt Bighton a lot before he got hurt. He's like
Yeah.
10 or 12-time X Games gold medalist. I paid him the same as kind of some of my no-name riders that nobody knows. They're both doing the same backflips. Like, doesn't really matter. You're getting paid the same. But there's not a way for the young kids to really make a name for themselves. So unfortunately, they're never going to have any big sponsors behind them. There's not a way to. They're making a living, but they're not paying they're paying their bills. They're not retiring off of it.
Right.
They're not. It's not what everybody thinks. If you walk away with $1,000 or $2,000 every weekend, maybe you ride 30 weeks out of the year. Okay, that's 60 grand. That's great. I got paid 60 grand, but then I got to ride a dirt bike, but I can't do this forever. So, it's kind of
Yeah.
double-edged sword, whatever.
Well, apparently some of you can do it forever. I don't see you
I'm still
slowing
at it.
down. It's super smart to move that into the stunt. I mean, everybody figures the stuntmen are the risk takers, right? And the freestyle guys are the risk takers, right? So it's almost a natural fit to move into the stunt world. How did that come about? Like, I mean, because not every freestyle guy does stunts,
Right.
and it's stunt. I think stunt work is a very specialized small field. Um, I don't know a lot of stunt people, maybe you and two or three more, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a niche market. Um, it is a natural progression because there's adrenaline involved. And I'm going to say you have to be able to control your adrenaline and focus on what you're doing.
Right.
Everybody, when you're jumping a dirt bike and doing freestyle, like you can't be like, oh my God, I'm letting go of the dirt bike. No, I got to slow things down and focus on what I'm doing. You kind of get over the wow factor of it. Very similar with stunt work. You have a job to do. I need to be on this mark at this time and do this movement. I can't be like, oh my God, I don't want to do this, I'm timid and this and that. So it is a very natural progression. It was an easy transition into doing stunt work. And the physics involved as well. A lot of times I'm doing 30 miles an hour. I can't stop right here. I got to start slowing down back here, or just the physics of the way a dirt bike moves, a car, stuff like that is transitions into it as well. I actually got invited. I'm super lucky. I got invited to do Fantastic Four back in 2004. Actually, back up even before that, I got invited to do Charlie's Angels in
Oh,
2002.
wow.
But I broke my leg at X Games the week before they started filming, so
Oh,
I didn't
no.
get to do it. But then I did Fantastic Four in 2004, and I had an absolute blast working on that film. I got to test the part where the Human Torch jumps and he backflips and he flies off the bike. I
Right.
was hanging from wires like 40 feet in the air. The bike fell into a pile of boxes, and I was swinging from this big cable thing. And I was like, this is freaking cool, man. This was the funnest thing ever. And so I really wanted to get into doing stunt work back then. But it's a very tight knit community, and it's very big on networking, kind of a who do you
Right.
know sort of thing. And at the time, I was still riding contests, and I had blinders on for contests. Man, I'm 5-6 days a week. I'm riding, I'm practicing, I'm going to the next contest, and so I was never able to really get into it back then. Fast forward to like 2012, 2013. I had raced cars. I tried racing NASCAR, tried racing rally cars. And I love it. Four wheels and a motor is amazing, but unless you win the lottery, you might as well not try racing cars.
Right.
So I was like, well, what else am I going to do? And I was like, man, I've always loved stunt work. And a buddy of mine, Andy Harrington, Regis, he used to be a head judge at X Games, rode for KTM back in the day. He had a column in Racer X. He's big into the stunt world. And I was like, man, New Orleans is the place to be. You got to uproot the family and move to New Orleans, and this is where it's going to be. And so we did. I moved to New Orleans about 10 years ago, and just started knocking on doors and being a part of it. And so I've been fortunate. I think I've got about 70 credits now, different
Wow.
movies, TV shows, and stuff that I've been in. I know you mentioned some of them at the beginning. Most recently, The Killers of the Flower Moon that just came out within the last
Nice.
year. I got a couple of parts in that. And then I got to double Jason Statham on the new Expendables 4 movie. So that was a big one. We filmed it like 3 or 4 years ago, and it finally came out last fall. So
That's
good times.
I haven't seen that one yet. That's on my watch list though. So it's funny. I'll be watching now because that's I'll be like, is that him or is that Statham? Right. So
Right. So there's one big jump where the guy Jason Statham, his character Christmas, does a whip and like turns down and fires at the ground. That was actually Robbie Madison. What's funny is it was me taking off the jump. It's Robbie doing the whip, and then I think it was actually a Czechoslovakian riding away from it afterward. It was filmed over in Greece, and so they used a lot of Slovakian guys. But it's kind of a hodgepodge of people. I think Statham had like 6 or 7 doubles on that film. There's a bunch of Can-Am side-by-side stuff, obviously the fight stuff, and the stunt world is getting so specialized. They're using they have a fight guy that they're a world champion martial artist. That's what they do is fight. And then they'll have a drift guy or a moto guy or a snowboard guy or whatever. And they kind of all come together and everybody gets to double, the main character.
that's interesting. I didn't know that. I knew they did a lot of specialty stuff in specifically car stunts compared to side-by-side stunts compared to bike stunts. And I don't know if that was the same Jumanji. Sarah Price did some side-by-side work in one of the Jumanjis or both of them. Might have been both of them, but I've known Sarah for a long time. She actually did the one where the ostrich, flip on the side-by-side down the sand dune.
Okay, nice. So that would have been the second one. They had the side-by-sides in the first one as well. But that was Chris Dennison and I think Ryan Logan. Not Ryan Logan. Logan Holiday jumped the other side by side. I don't remember who their partners were and their side by side people were, but those were sketchy. There was I think there was 8 of us. There were 6 single ramps in the middle, and then the 2 side by sides, and they cut the top 2 feet off of a freestyle ramp. But we were pointed slightly downhill, and it was kind of a downhill thing, and then it dropped off, and there was an actual downside. We were on stock Suzuki DRZ 400s with about 50 to 80 pounds worth of gack on them, all the machine guns and stuff. You would land, and as the hill fell away, fall, you would land so hard. Every time we're checking the frames for cracks and foot pegs are bending down. And they had 8 riders that were really good riders, raced supercross, did freestyle, professional riders. And they kept getting, can we get them closer together, closer? We're like, dude, we're a foot from each other jumping these things. No, we can't get any closer. Because when you land that hard, you just bounce and kind of go everywhere. It's like,
oh yeah,
we're good in the air, but somebody's going to eat it on the landing because we're going to run into each other. So it was good times though.
That's gnarly, dude. I mean, I've ridden that close together on a racetrack, on a road course, um, or closer,
Yeah.
or a lot closer at a lot at speed, but not in the air and certainly not landing in sand. I have zero interest in that.
Right. It wasn't sand, luckily. It was a grass hill, but it was a downhill, just super hard landing. So
Wow.
yeah, it was
That's
it
so
was cool. It was
gnarly.
an experience for
Yeah,
sure.
no, no doubt. So in all this stuff, do you have a favorite, like, of all the freestyle tricks? Because there's a bunch of tricks you're credited with the first ever.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, you have a huge personal repertoire of like your what would you call them, signature tricks, right?
Yeah. Right.
That probably more signature tricks than most people out there still riding FMX now. You know, a
Right.
lot of those guys have a couple that they're really good at. But for you, like what's like the most memorable or your most favorite that you kind of invented, came up with, or were the first ever?
So a regular classic whip is my favorite trick, all time favorite. I didn't invent it. That trick's been around since the 60s and 70s.
Right.
But I felt like I used to have a really good whip. Nowadays the big whip guys are just insane. They're like literally upside down. Used to be if you got the bike past flat, it was a really good whip. Now they're actually passed upside down. It's just ridiculous how they do it. Um, but so that's my favorite all-time trick. One that I invented, I don't know, maybe a no-handed whip. That's something I still do every now and then. If it's a crowd that I think might appreciate it, like at an arena cross, I'll
Yeah.
throw out a no-handed whip. A lot of the monster truck shows and rodeos and stuff that I do, like those people don't really know the difference in a regular whip or a no-handed. Um, a lot of those fans, I should say, not everybody, but so sometimes I won't do it, but I still throw that one out every now and then. Uh, the most memorable one, or definitely the scariest one I think I've ever done, was the one-handed takeoff backflip. That one, I only did it twice in Denver, Colorado, at a dew tour, and then I got hurt a couple weeks later at X Games in practice, and just never did it again. But man, taking off the ramp with one hand, a lot of guys are doing that, like into a seat grab or into a whip or something. But when
Right.
you go to pull for a backflip, the bars turn sideways and it like corks the bike out. It wants
Ooh,
to come out from under you, so like you got to hook your foot under something. And it was one, man. I was sweating bullets going into that contest. And
probably
was able to land it twice. I'm like, all right, I'm good.
steering dampener cranked as tight as it go, and
Right. I've actually never ran a steering dampener. I
really,
really like them.
wow. I know a lot of the younger guys do now for sure.
Doing no-handed flips, I think that it is good. If you let go of one side or the other, just a split second different, it'll turn the bars. And as
Yeah.
soon as the bars turn in a backflip, it corks out all sorts of weird. Um, I don't do no-handed flips. I'll do it one-handed, but that's it. But upright, I've always wanted the bars to be loose and let it kind of center itself.
Oh, there you go.
If you were at a steering stabilizer and you let go of the bars, and they're say 5 degrees off. When you go to come back, they're still going to be 5 degrees off.
Gotcha.
When they're loose, I can let go of it, and the centrifugal force of the wheel will kind of center it
Uh,
to where it's. I know the bars are always centered when I come back.
Who listen to all that smart, super genius, like rotational mass and Einstein type stuff applied
I don't know
to
about that. There's just a lot of
jumping dirt
experience,
bikes.
a lot of ugly crashes.
Yeah.
a lot of times coming back and the bars are crooked. I'm like, what happened here? Why are they sideways?
Yeah. Well, I
You sound
know
like I know what I'm talking about.
the you were I happened to, as I was reading just some bio stuff or career highlight stuff, and and you were also credited with the first side saddle uh backflip, right?
Yeah. Um,
Side saddle start backflip.
yeah, I took
Which-
off riding side saddle and did a backflip. That was my best trick for 2004. No, it was 2005. Um, and I ended up fourth with that one. That's kind of a long story that led into the one-handed takeoff flip. Uh, how PG your show is here, but I'll go through the whole story. It's kind of funny. So I did
Oh,
the.
we're not PG at all. We are.
All right, cool. So I took off riding side saddle and did a backflip. I crashed the first time. It was only on the 45-foot super kicker at the time. And then I landed my second attempt at it. I got fourth with that trick. And everybody's like, how in the world did you get fourth? And something I credit a lot of my success to is I always went to the judges after the event and I wasn't pissed off. I wasn't like, man, why'd you give me that score? But I always went to them and go, hey, why did you score me the way you did? And what can I do better? Well, Dave Domingos was the head judge at the time. And so I went and talked to him. He was currently in a wheelchair with a broken leg. And his response was, well,
Wow.
since you crashed the first time and you didn't get hurt, it kind of told us it wasn't really that gnarly of a trick. And I'm like, Dave, as a fellow rider, are you seriously telling me that because I didn't get hurt, you scored me less on the time I did land it? I was so pissed at them. Right after that, I talked to several guys and I got one of the biggest compliments of my career. Brock Glover, motocross legend, told me, he's like, man, that was amazing. I don't think I could get on a bike and ride across a parking lot side saddle, much less do a backflip like that. So that was super cool. It hit me in the heart there. It was good.
Yeah.
So then fast forward into 2006. I didn't really have anything for best trick going into X Games. And so thought back on what things have I tried in the past that maybe I need to work on some more or whatever. And so I thought about the side saddle flip and I kept getting so pissed that I got fourth with that one. I didn't even medal with like something completely new and tricky and difficult and all that. So the person that pulls me in and out of the foam pit, they sit 90 degrees to you, basically where the judges do. So I could go into my foam pit, looking at the judges, giving them the finger, and do a flip the entire time. And so I talked to a couple of my big sponsors. I had everybody on board. That was going to be my best trick, was to take off one-handed and flip the judges off and land it.
I love it. That's awesome.
Unfortunately, I got hurt that morning in practice for freestyle, and so I didn't even get to ride best trick.
Oh no.
Yeah, but I did do it, like I said, a couple weeks before that at the Denver Dew Tour. So I am credited with the first one-handed backflip. And I think to this day, Nate Adams and maybe Travis are the only three guys that have done those. Nobody really does one-handed flips. Even Travis did them into his foam pit, and he said he like dead sailored the first jump into the pit. And at Travis's house, that's kind of a taboo thing to jump, but not like you wasted a jump in the foam pit if you didn't backflip. And I guess his dad was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Bartram did it." And Travis was like, "This is actually really, really scary." So that was kind of cool. But I think he did finally do one on dirt.
That's crazy. Yeah. I had a friend of mine on here that is MC extraordinaire that had spent some time with Travis. Travis invited him up and insisted he hit the foam pit on a pit bike. And
Yeah.
Lewis is a big, tall dude. But he couldn't just hit the foam pit. He had to backflip.
Travis won't let you jump in straight the first time. And nope, first time's got to be a backflip. Don't waste a jump in the pit.
That's what, and I was like, wow, and he did it. I'm like, dude, that's amazing. But yeah, I've heard, I've got to meet Travis a few times, and I've heard some stories like that, and hopefully I never get invited out there or to jump.
No, it's like Disneyland for dirt bikes, and Travis is hardcore for sure.
Yeah.
He's super nice, but he will absolutely heckle you. Like, no, you're here, you're at a foam pit. There's no straight jumps here. You're gonna jump it. You're here, you want to do it, go big, So
That's awesome. Yeah, and so, man, what a career. I mean, just spanning like when people really like if people would go back and look like you said, when you started freestyle, it was basically the inception of freestyle. It was there, and you're still doing it.
So this being from Stillwater, you'll actually think this is kind of cool. They filmed Steel Roots in part of Steel Roots, the old Jeremy McGrath video in Stillwater. My uncle Guy was big part of it, so they came there and filmed him. I remember sitting at the Red Lobster in Stillwater with Grayson Goodman, Jeremy McGrath, Guy, and Lawrence Lewis, and I think John Freeman from Krusty. They were all sitting there drawing a freestyle course on a napkin and talking about quarter pipes and wall rides and like all drawing out these courses. And as a kid, I was like, I guess I was 15, 16 at the time, whatever. And I'm like, these guys are crazy. This is never going to work. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it sounds kind of cool, but whatever. It was a very surreal moment. And then about a year later, I get invited to the first contest. And I'm like, wow, it's actually looks a lot like what they had drawn on the napkin right there. So Stillwater actually had a big influence on the birth of freestyle.
Wow, I did not
Yeah.
know that. Very few people probably know it. Our listeners know it now for sure. So that's
there was only about 6 or 8 people at that table, 25, 30 years ago.
wow. That's crazy. And the evolution of the sport, like you were talking about, they're doing, half pipes and wall rides and stuff like that to, front flips that I remember 6 years ago or so, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, it was impossible. And then they did it, and it's like, I know Haslam was almost had one lined out for Winter X on a snow bike, a front flip.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he tore a knee up and hurt his knee and couldn't pull it off. But yeah, I mean, when you think about it from like the whips and the knack-knacks and can-cans and, the evolution, dude, it's crazy.
It is, absolutely.
And
You think of, I remember sitting at Oklahoma City Freestyle Show. I think it was in 03, but it was early in 2003. I had done a backflip off of the face of the jump, and I think I had done a couple off the super kicker, but I wasn't real comfortable with them. And I'm like, they didn't have a super kicker there. And I'm like, man, I should just pull for a flip off the 75-foot ramp. Like, just blow everybody away and like win this contest. And like, also, I don't really want to die right in front of my family, here at the Oklahoma City round. And so I did end up doing it. But the evolution of it now to do a straight backflip, even off 75 feet, like, I mean, it's cool. Okay, backflip, like, but it's not. You're not going to win any contest, or you wouldn't even make the main event just by doing a backflip. You've got to be doing double flips, front flips, body varials, big, huge backflip, something like it is crazy where the evolution has gone.
Yeah, it's I don't know that. I mean, obviously it's going to, I guess I can't say obviously it's going to plateau, because we thought that when when you guys were throwing backflips the first time, it's like, wow, that's it.
What else can they do?
Yeah, freestyles.
Well, that's where it's kind of opened up, like you were talking, the quarter pipes, wall rides, and now with social media, there's a couple of guys, Colby Raha and Axel Hodges, that are, I'm going to say, at the forefront of cool videos. Some of it's super technical, some of it's not, some of it's just big kahunas to do it and whatever. But they're cool videos. People get behind them, and it might not be doing a backflip. There may not be a trick at all to it. It might be about the sunset behind them and they're jumping into an aqueduct, or now like the scissor lift, jumping up, nose wheeling across and front flip off. And like, there's so much stuff that you can do that may or may not involve a backflip or a front flip or something, but it's a cool video that is different. And so Travis had a saying years and years and years and years ago. He's like, wherever your creative mind stops, that's when freestyle stops for you. And so it's true. There's always going to be young kids trying to create new stuff. Freestyle will never go anywhere. It'll go up and down in popularity and all that, but it's never going away as long as people are being creative with it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's guys like you that inspire these young kids. I mean, Cole's not a freestyle guy, but he was born and raised Southern California, dirt bike
Yeah.
and huge fan, Destry Abbott, all those guys, and inspired his, you know, whole riding career. He did have bad crash and doesn't race anymore. Um,
Yeah. That's a
but
good.
he's got a couple of he's got some hardware in his back now. So
Yeah.
we're we're gonna try hopefully his wife doesn't listen to this one because we're gonna try and get in some four-wheel desert stuff here up and coming. So stay tuned on that. It should be
Free
entertaining.
honey. He's just working late at the office. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a meeting, got a work meeting in Reno. And I'm just gonna drive him up there from Vegas.
Right. Exactly. And then we
It
have to
might
race back. I mean,
yeah, yeah. So but yeah, I mean just everything that you have done for the freestyle industry, you probably are watching this stuff and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's throwing that, this guy's throwing that. How often do you think back, oh, I created that? Or, I was the first
every
one to
now and
pull
then.
that off.
Yeah. Every now and then, people will do a trick that I started or whatever, and it's fun to watch that. And then you see other guys like, man, I kind of thought about that, but I just didn't have the kahunas to pull it off or the skills or whatever. And so, you give them credit for it. Like, man, that's big. That's gnarly. I'm glad that somebody was finally able to do it.
Yeah, it's funny. I want to throw out there a shout out to my buddy Jared LaRue because you were talking about whips
Yeah.
and um how gnarly they're getting. And he at a Doomfest, he did a whip. And he's got a pretty gnarly whip to begin with.
Yeah.
And he threw that thing up and out and forgot he had about a 5 mile an hour tailwind.
Oh,
And when he landed it, I was like, I was emceeing the event and or announcing it, and when they got done, I'm like, dude, that was the gnarliest whip I have ever seen in my life. And he said, yeah, I forgot about the wind. I threw it out there as big as I could, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh,
I
I
can't get
hope
it
I can
back.
get it back.
Right.
But he
People
pulled it
don't
off.
realize. Yeah, I tell people, if it's too windy, obviously we can't ride in some
Right.
freestyle stuff. But a bike is 3.5 feet tall and 7.5 feet long. So I always tell people, imagine holding a 4x8 sheet of plywood on the roof of your house. That's
Yeah.
what a bike is like. So if it's a straight head or tailwind and you keep the bike straight, it's not too bad. You turn it sideways and it's going to either stop you or push you further, one of the two, or you push it sideways. Sometimes it's really hard to pull it back straight. So yeah, it's the wind is definitely evil to freestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Man, well, looks like we're running up on time. I know it's late your time too, by the way. Thank you for joining us so late.
Yeah,
And
no worries.
folks, you don't
Thanks for having
know.
me on, man.
Yeah, you don't know what we've been through trying to get Kenny on. He had to run away from a hurricane.
Right.
And but dude, to your credit, this is the kind of guy, if any of you have any question whatsoever, this is the kind of guy Kenny is. Hey, I might have to be a little late because we're evacuating and I don't know how good the signal is going to be, but I'll do it from the car while I'm driving. And I'm like, dude, no, like, you take care of your family, take care of the important stuff. This is a silly little podcast. We can wait. So
It's just
thank
driving.
you.
We drive all the time. I literally put like 60 to 80,000 miles a year on. So set the phone up on a little holder and drive. I'm whatever we can do it. But Yeah, I'm glad you guys were able to wait, and now we got a good. Not that you really have anything cool in the background, just a normal bedroom, but
Well,
whatever.
it's all good. It's all good. It's hey, the thing we've done a couple with guys in cars at night, and it just looks creepy.
Really? Oh yeah. I bet at
But
night for sure. You get a little glow from the dash lights, and then every now and then like headlights,
yeah,
like a ghost story sort of effect.
we had we had Mitch Guthrie Jr. We had the Red Bull last year. We had the Red Bull Off Road Junior Team USA on, and Seth was at home, AJ was at home, but Junior was driving to a birthday party for family or something, and it was dark, and it was crazy wild. It just looked weird. So,
Really? Yeah. That's funny.
but man, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and how great is it to hear the story? And I know people are going to be like super jacked, to hear where it started, how it started. And it's funny that to begin with, like, you didn't want to ride because it was too loud.
Right? Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Not to start on a whole nother tangent, but
No, for sure.
I always tell people like, don't worry about, oh, I got to be this by, you look at Ricky Carmichael or Villapoto or a lot of the greats. They were winning championships on 80s. McGrath never rode a dirt bike until he was like 13 or 14 years old.
Right.
Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team. I've got a kid. I've got a junior in high school playing baseball, and he's a little stud that's definitely college bound and hopefully beyond. And everybody's like, "Oh, are you committed yet to a college or all this?" I'm like, "Dude, you got time." Like, Michael Jordan didn't make his basketball team. Arguably one of the greatest basketball players ever did not make his high school team. Like, you have plenty of time. Enjoy the sport, enjoy the passion of it, and develop the skills. If you don't have the passion for it, you're never going to make it to the professional level. So
Right.
just have fun with it. I don't remember what started that part of the conversation, but
Hey, it's a
but,
big part
but yeah,
of
you got plenty of time.
love what you do what you love, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Oh, that was it. Yeah, because I was scared of the bike at the beginning.
yeah,
Man, for parents out there, let your kids develop their passion in life and then let them follow it. Brooks, my son, rode when he was little, but he clearly didn't have a passion for it. He wanted to ride because that's what dad did, but he'd do like 2 laps and be like, okay, I'm good. He'd go play a baseball tournament, play 3 or 4 games and come home. Dad, let's go throw a ball out front. I'm like, okay, well, this is his passion. And so,
yeah,
not that I'm the greatest parent, but parenting advice is, let your kids follow their passion. Don't force them into anything. I was blessed with the 2 most amazing parents ever. Mom and dad, I love you. That's something they did. They tried to get me on a bike. I was scared of it. They didn't push it. Like, okay,
yeah.
no worries. We're riding horses at the time. And so, but then once I developed that passion, they supported it 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's great advice. We see enough, and I know you go to enough of these races, you see enough of the 50 class, and I call them the 50 dads, and we rip on them all the time during the arena
Yep.
cross season,
Right.
because I do a recap every race, and it's like if the kid doesn't want to ride, like, they don't need to ride that weekend, or you certainly don't want them out there. I've seen kids crying at the gate, and it just breaks my heart. It's like,
It does. Yeah.
take a Valium, dad. Like,
Right.
chill.
Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
and maybe that kid is like your son, the next Reggie Jackson baseball player, or Babe Ruth, or whatever. I mean,
Right. Yep.
um,
Absolutely.
great advice. Great
Yeah.
advice. Dude, oh, I almost forgot. Sponsors. Your sponsors, shout outs.
Yeah. Well, obviously kicker. Definitely gotta throw a big huge shout out to those guys. And like I said, been a huge kicker guy since I think 1996. So love kicker stuff. KTM. I've been with KTM off and on for 25 years now.
Wow.
Pretty cool to be able to say I've had one sponsor for 25 years. Um, Fly gear, Alpine Star boots, rye helmets, Maxima oil, Dunlop tires, tag handlebars, twin air filters, EVS, uh, OGO viral brand goggles. We've had a lot of great sponsors. 3B Graphics out of Tulsa. A lot of great sponsors over the years, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of them for a lot of years. Been with Alpine Stars since '98 as well.
Wow.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff that I find a brand that I like, and I try to be loyal to them, and they take good care of me. And Arai, I've been with them as well since the mid '90s. So yeah,
Well, and that's a
love it.
true testament also to the type of person you are, because having worked on the um, performance industry side and having been a sponsor, um, you look at the person like not every sponsor relationship is 20 years long.
Right. Well,
You
absolutely.
know?
I've been big. I did the Jägermeister halftime show in 09 and 010 at the Supercrosses. That was the first logo I've ever ran on my bike that I didn't actually use and love the product.
Yeah.
But it was a team thing. I had to run it to be able to be allowed in the show. But other than that, any sticker that's ever been on my bike is something that I actually use and I like and
That's
get behind.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we are here at the podcast. It's like, we have Kicker Audio, Bomber Eyewear, and the our video audio girl, Kelsey, my daughter, Kelsey Morel, uh, film, and then our social media girl, which is actually one of my other daughters, Hey Keeks, at heykeeks.com, Hey Keeks Marketing. But and then the Premix podcast is all about Cole, and when he quit racing, he picked up a camera and started hitting desert races, and it's just nailing the bangers. So, I'm the same way. Only the stuff I believe in is what we're going to stand behind. There's a lot of time. It seems like there's not enough of us left in this world that are that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Special shout outs. We need to wrap you up here. Special
Yeah.
shout outs. Who do you got?
That's it, man. Yeah, we just mentioned all the sponsors. Thank you guys for a lot of years of great memories and great relationships. And uh, special shout out all the fans that have supported me over the years, and just good people, good times, and that's about it.
Nice. And your family, wife, kids, mom,
Yeah,
dad,
yeah. Kimberly and
four
Brooks and mom and dad are great.
four generations of riding is insane. So rad. Where do people find you? Steel Rodeo still going.
Yep. So all my social media is Cowboy Kenny 690. 690 was my racing number, and I've just kind of stuck with that. And actually, Cowboy Kenny was taken when I finally signed up for a Facebook account, and so I just made all my social media now as Cowboy Kenny 690. So
There you go, folks. You know where to find him. And be sure and check him out. If you see him riding somewhere, man, you got to see it.
yeah,
It's history to watch you ride. I mean, what an honor. And I'm going to jump back real quick to the first time I met you was 18 at the mini Big Air Bash at Kicker, and we met and we talked a little bit, and then they were getting ready to shoot a video sequence of you wheeling up the stairs into the showroom, the museum, and wheeling
right.
around the museum. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
And just before you took off, just before they said action, I was like, hey, they just polished the floor in there. And you looked at me and you were like, thanks. And I think you slapped me on the chest. And then they were like, go. I
Right.
had this fear. I didn't know how it came out till I saw the video, but I had this fear. You going in on a wheelie and just laying over sideways, or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you told me. Yeah.
But that was, I mean, it was this, you know, basically nobody you knew saying, "Hey, the floor's polished," and you took the time to thank me and slap me on the chest and thank you. That meant a lot to me, and I've been blessed to know you and see you ride many times now. And man, I can't wait till the next time I get to see you ride.
Yep, absolutely, man. I'll
Cool.
holler at you next time I'm in Stillwater, and we'll get together.
Yeah, I'm in Arizona now, so
All
I
right,
get
okay.
back to Stilly probably 3 to 5 times a year now. So it's
Okay.
not
Yeah.
near as much. I work trips, you know, but
Right.
still once in a while. And I'll be at the Guthrie Arena Cross. It's only one night this year, so one day.
Right.
So, but yeah, man, I hope to see you soon. Kenny, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know it's late your time.
Yep.
Dude, thanks for making it work. Have a
No
great
worries.
night.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All those fans, get along for the ride with Kenny Bartram at Cowboy Kenny 690 across all the social media platforms. Man, oh man, one of the innovators, one of really the godfathers of freestyle. And what a career. How blessed are we to have him on? That was just great. I know we're running up on time, so I am going to make this quick. Be sure to rate, subscribe, follow, and like MAddOG'S After Show on your favorite streaming platform. Be sure and check out our great partners, Kicker Performance Audio. Find them online, kicker.com, on Instagram at Kicker Audio. Every other Tuesday night live on their TV show, 7:30 Central, YouTube or Facebook. Of course, Bomber Eyewear, Bomber Safety Eyewear, Bomber Floating Eyewear, Bomber Badass Eyewear. MAddOG said it. Hit them up. Go check them out. BomberEyewear.com. Over 40 frame styles. Don't even know how many lens combinations possible, but check them out. BomberEyewear.com. When you get to the shopping cart, be sure and use this little gem, MAddOG 20, MAddOG 20. Let them know MAddOG sent you. We appreciate it. BomberEyewear.com, on Instagram at Bomber Eyewear. Of course, the Premix Podcast on Instagram at the Premix Podcast. Our greatest of great dudes, Mr. Cole, sharing his passion for all things desert racing through the lens of a camera. Need photos from your race? Hit him up. Slide into his DMs, the at symbol THEPREMIXPODCAST on Instagram. Of course, Kelsey Morrell Film. Find her on Instagram at Kelsey Morrell Film for all your film production, still production needs, from pre-production and planning all the way through to post-production. Kelsey Morrell Film has you covered. Hey Geeks Marketing. Need a website? Need a social media? Need one to maintain? Need to add a shopping cart to your website? Need to add a full-blown influencer campaign to your social media? Yo, Hey Geeks. Or just find her on Instagram at Hey Geeks Marketing. Even easier on the webs, heygeeks.com. Thank you so much. Appreciate all you listeners and appreciate, man, you're sharing us out. Show's growing like crazy. We are so blessed. Ladies, remember, go get your boobs checked. nationalbreastcancer.org. Go get a mammogram, get them checked, make sure you're all good. October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. With that, special thank you to my family and, of course, Kenny the Cowboy Bartram. What a great time. God bless our troops. God bless our first responders. God bless this podcast. God bless America. Mad Dog out.